The flight information flickered overhead as I stood frozen at the departure gate, not from confusion, but from the echo of what my sister had just said. "We didn't book you a seat. Thought you'd cancel anyway." She smirked like it was clever. Like humiliation was a joke. My parents didn't even look back. They just laughed and kept walking toward security, dragging their designer carry-ons across the polished floor like they weren't dragging my heart with them. "My name is Danielle, and from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because I have a question. Have you ever watched the people you love treat you like luggage? Optional, forgettable, and easy to leave behind?" I wasn't late. I wasn't uninformed. I was standing there in jeans and a packed duffel, holding my passport, assuming I was part of the family vacation I helped plan. You know what my mistake was? Assuming I belonged. That trip, New York to Santorini, 5-star hotels, the private vineyard tour, the sunset cruise, I helped arrange every part. I worked overtime shifts. I coordinated the bookings. I offered my card when the family group chat had gone silent after the price tag came up.
"Just charge it," Mom had said.
"We'll settle it later." They never did. But I thought maybe this trip would be different. Maybe I'd be more than the backup planner. Maybe I'd actually be included. Turns out I was just the wallet with a smile. I watched them walk through TSA. My sister even turned around to wave at me like she was doing me a favor. "Oh well," she mouthed. And that's when it clicked. Not rage. Not tears. Just clarity. Because what they didn't know, what they never even bothered to ask, was that the entire trip was on my credit card.
Flights.
Hotel confirmations. Cruise reservations. Every single itinerary booked in my name. So while they floated through the airport like royalty, I pulled out my phone. 10 minutes. That's all it took. I canceled everything. The flights?
Gone.
The hotel? Refunded to my account. The cruise? Notified of the fraudulent guests. I stood at gate B12, tucked my phone back into my pocket and smiled. Let them board. Let them take off. Let them land halfway across the world only to find out the trip was never theirs to begin with. I sat in the airport lounge sipping a basic latte while tracking the flight I'd just canceled for 5 people. Delayed. Then denied. They must have reached the gate just as the system flagged their boarding passes as invalid. I imagined my sister standing there in her designer sandals, rolling her eyes at the gate agent. Mom pulling out her sunglasses dramatically. Dad going red in the face, insisting, "There must be some mistake. We booked weeks ago." "No, Dad. I booked weeks ago. And you all just assumed I'd stay quiet and foot the bill like always." A message lit up my phone. "Grace, sister. Why is the airline saying we have no booking? Call me now." I didn't. I watched the airport crowd move around me.
Calm.
Normal. Meanwhile, on the other side of security, the people who raised me were probably realizing for the first time in their lives that I wasn't going to save them this time. See, they'd gotten used to me being invisible. Not weak, invisible. The kind of person who makes the dinner, sets the table, and isn't offered a seat. Who drives 3 hours to help but gets left out of the group photo. Who plans the family vacation but isn't considered family enough to deserve her own plane ticket. My silence was their favorite currency. They never imagined I'd cash out. Another ping.
"Mom. Danielle."
"What did you do?" "We're at the gate, and there's no flight." "Fix it." Then, not 5 seconds later. "Mom. You have 5 minutes to call me before your father explodes." Explodes? Exploding is easy. Staying calm, now that's power. So I stood, picked up my bag, and walked to the exit. No chaos. No shouting. Just the quiet satisfaction of letting years of being sidelined land exactly where it hurt. By the time they realized the hotel in Santorini had also been canceled, I was already halfway to my rental car. I had booked a cozy cabin upstate, peaceful, silent, and entirely mine. No family drama. No fake smiles. Just me, and the sound of them panicking somewhere over the Atlantic, wondering why the world suddenly stopped revolving around them. Oh, and one more thing. I left a little message on the cruise reservation email, the one I CC'd them on, right after I hit cancel.
"Sorry.
There's been a change in plans. Turns out I did cancel, just not in the way you expected." By the time they realized the hotel had dropped their reservation and the cruise line had blacklisted their names due to a flagged chargeback, I was already wrapped in a warm wool blanket, drinking coffee in front of a fire. No calls. No yelling. Just the crackling sound of peace, something I hadn't felt in years. My phone buzzed again. I didn't even bother checking. They weren't calling out of love. They were calling because they finally needed something from me. Again. For context, this wasn't new. When Grace wanted to go to college out of state, I co-signed the loan. When Dad's business almost lost its warehouse, I loaned him $10,000 from my emergency fund. When Mom's car broke down and she didn't want to ask Dad, I paid the mechanic directly so she could keep pretending she handled it herself. But I didn't do it because I was weak. I did it because I believed family meant showing up, even when they didn't see you. And I thought maybe, if I showed up enough, they'd finally save me a seat. I was wrong. I'd been taught to think loyalty meant sacrifice. But somewhere along the way, I started confusing silence with love. When they left me at that airport gate, without so much as a glance back, I saw it clearly. They never saw me as part of the family. I was just the sponsor, the fixer, the afterthought with a credit limit. So this time, I didn't answer their calls. I let them sweat through the Athens airport, fighting over who was going to fix it now that their human doormat wasn't kneeling in front of them. Instead, I did something they'd never expect. I opened my laptop and filed the formal dispute, all $8,360 of it, labeled under unauthorized family abuse of funds, screenshots, chat records, confirmation emails in my name. By the time they landed, their phones were probably lighting up with fraud alerts. Grace tried to FaceTime me. I watched her name pop up on the screen, paused, and then declined it. She sent one last message. "You're being dramatic. You're going to regret this." But regret? That's what I felt every time I paid the bill and still wasn't allowed at the table. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. Of time. Of dignity. Of my own narrative. Because when someone leaves you behind on purpose, they don't get to keep riding on your credit.
Not now.
Not ever again. The next day, I finally answered. Not to argue. Not to explain. Just to hear how they'd spin it. Mom's voice hit first, shrill, offended, coded in disbelief. "Danielle, how could you? You embarrassed us in a foreign country." We were left standing there like criminals. The hotel staff thought we were scammers. I didn't flinch. I just let her keep talking. "Do you know what people must think of our family name now? After all we've done for you." All they've done? I almost laughed. But I waited until she was done gasping for control before I answered calmly. "I didn't cancel the trip to punish you, Mom. I canceled the illusion that I was ever part of it."
Silence.
Then Dad came on the line. His voice wasn't angry. It was tight, controlled, like he'd rehearsed this. "You went too far. This isn't just about a vacation. It's about respect." I let out a breath. "Exactly," I said. "Respect. Funny how it suddenly matters when you're not the one being left behind." "We didn't mean it like that," he muttered. "You meant it exactly like that," I replied. "You booked tickets for everyone but me, then laughed like it was some inside joke. You left me standing there like I wasn't your daughter. I've worked overtime for months to pay off that trip. And when you thought you had everything in hand, you tossed me out like I was lucky to even be at the gate." There was a pause. Then he said, "We assumed you'd understand. You always do." And that was the problem. I always understood. I always adjusted, forgave, made peace while choking on my own silence. But not this time. "I'm not your understanding little girl anymore," I said. "You taught me family means obligation. I'm teaching myself that it means respect. And if I have to choose between the two, I'll choose myself." Then I hung up. No drama. No screaming. No apologies. Just the click of a line they never expected me to cross. Later that night, Grace texted me, "You're seriously cutting us off over a seat on a plane?" And for the first time in my life, I smiled at her ignorance. Because it was never about the seat. It was about every table I wasn't welcome at. Every conversation I was left out of. Every time I paid, emotionally, financially, and still had to knock before entering my own family. The seat was just the final receipt. And I wasn't footing the bill anymore. By the third day, their group vacation had fully unraveled. I didn't need to spy. They aired the disaster themselves. Grace posted a cryptic Instagram story. A blurry selfie, no makeup, captioned, "People will use money to control you. Watch out." Then a screenshot of an email from the cruise company. Reservation canceled due to billing authorization failure. Refund processed to original cardholder. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered standing at that airport gate, suitcase in hand, hearing my sister say, "We didn't book you a seat. Thought you'd cancel anyway." While Mom laughed like I was the joke. Let them sit in that. What they didn't know was that I had anticipated exactly this. Before canceling everything, I'd also ensured there'd be no fallback options. No second hotel. No last-minute resort upgrade. No alternative cruise route.
Why?
Because this was the first time in their lives that I decided how far they got to go. Turns out, without my help, they didn't get far. I heard through a cousin that they ended up crammed into a 2-star roadside hotel outside Athens, trying to make the most of it. No vineyard. No fine dining. Just plastic chairs and Greek TV reruns. And when they finally realized their cards were frozen from my fraud alert, the panic turned real.
Dad emailed me.
Not text. Not a call. An actual email, subject line. Talk. "We made a mistake. But you've made your point. We're stuck in a foreign country with no cash, no reservations, and your mother is on the verge of tears. We're family, Danielle. Fix this. Please." No, I'm sorry. No ownership. Just a plea dressed up in entitlement. They still didn't get it. This wasn't punishment. This was consequence. They left me behind, on purpose. I simply returned the favor, with precision. So I replied, "You always said I was too sensitive. Turns out I was just aware. Aware of how disposable you made me feel, over and over. This trip is a mirror. Look around. You finally get to live a week in my role. Forgotten, excluded, and expected to be grateful anyway." No response. Just silence. A silence they used to force on me. Now, I wear it like armor. And I wasn't done yet. Because if they thought this vacation was the end of the fallout, they clearly hadn't seen what happens when the family disappointment finally takes back her power. By day 5, the silence broke, not with apologies, but with threats. Grace left me a voicemail. Her voice was sharp, performative, like she was narrating her victimhood for an audience she thought cared. "You've embarrassed the entire family. We couldn't even check into a basic hotel without being asked for a backup card. Dad had to borrow money from strangers. Are you trying to destroy us?" Destroy them? I'd simply stopped funding the illusion. They weren't suffering because I sabotaged anything. They were suffering because they were dependent on someone they refused to respect. And that someone had walked away. That same morning, I received a message from the family accountant, yes, the one they never told me they hired, even though I handled all the travel and medical bookings for years. His message was simple. "Danielle, I've been instructed to ask if you're willing to reauthorize the charges. They've promised to reimburse you when they're back." I laughed. Out loud. Alone in my cabin, coffee in hand. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled it. This was their pattern.
Use. Discard. Deny.
And when they find themselves stranded, reach out with fake humility dipped in guilt. I responded. Reimbursement should never come after exclusion. Let them use their heir's card. He didn't respond. They knew what that meant. There would be no rescue. No grace card from Danielle. No magical reversal of their cruelty. They had spent years positioning me as the background character to their perfect family photo. The girl behind the camera. The one who didn't mind being left out. Well, now that same girl had the receipts, the credit, the cancellation rights, the full itinerary, and the final say. A cousin messaged me privately. "They're saying you've lost it, that you need therapy." I responded. "I got therapy. That's why I don't enable them anymore. Because you don't get to abandon someone at the gate of your love and still expect a first-class ride through their loyalty." I didn't need to shout. I didn't need revenge porn or public drama. I had one simple, surgical truth on my side. They never valued me. So, I finally priced myself out of their reach. And by the time they returned, I'd made sure the one thing they really cared about, their reputation, would be waiting in the form of an empty welcome home. They landed back in the States with sunburns, canceled credit cards, and no clue how fast word had spread. Because while they were offline, stranded and sweating through $5 hotel towels, I was very much online and very much done playing the quiet one. No public posts. Just quiet moves. I unsubscribed them from every shared account I had ever paid for, streaming, cloud storage, family phone plans. I disconnected my name from their home security system. I unlinked my credit profile from every emergency contact form. And then, I finally updated the title on the family vacation home, the one I'd been paying the mortgage on alone for the past 3 years, to reflect its sole owner.
Me.
They returned expecting chaos, confrontation, and another round of manipulation. Instead, they came home to a lock code that no longer worked and an email. Ownership transferred. Residence no longer shared. Please remove any personal belongings by Friday. After that, I'll have them boxed and sent. Family means respect. If you're not willing to offer it, don't expect to reside in it. The silence that followed? Delicious. No phone calls. No drive-bys. Just one group text from Mom. I can't believe you're being so cold. So cold? I thought of every night I sat at that dining table, left out of the toasts. Every trip where I was forgotten. Every family photo where I was holding the camera and holding back tears. I replied, "You're not used to me being clear. That's different from cold." Then I blocked the thread. Later, I got a text from a younger cousin. "You really kicked them out? Everyone's talking about it." I answered honestly. I didn't kick them out. I just stopped leaving the door open for people who walk past me. Because I was never the villain they painted me as. I was the foundation they stomped over. The seat they never saved. The name on the card they thought they could swipe without consequence. Now, I wasn't the invisible one in the background. I was the address on the deed. The line they couldn't cross. The ending they didn't write. And the next time they plan a vacation, they'll know exactly what it costs to leave someone behind, when she finally learns to leave them behind. 2 months passed. 2 months of blissful silence. No texts. No birthday reminders. No fake check-ins masked as control. Then one day, I got a handwritten envelope in the mail. From my father. Inside, a photo. One of those perfect family pictures. Everyone dressed in white linen on some beach. Me cropped out. Literally. The frame cut jaggedly around where I once stood. No note. No apology. Just the picture. It should have hurt. But it didn't. Because I'd already stopped mourning people who only called me family when they needed a ride, a check, or a silence they could exploit. I walked to my fireplace, held the photo in my hand for one last breath, and dropped it in.
Gone.
No rage. No flames of fury. Just quiet release. That night, I hosted a dinner in the same vacation home they once excluded me from. Not a reunion. Not revenge. Just something real. A friend who took me in when I was left at the airport. A coworker I helped through chemo. A neighbor whose child calls me Auntie D. We laughed, passed dishes, played old Motown, and toasted under fairy lights. Someone asked what the occasion was. I said, family dinner. Because family isn't blood. It's not who laughs at your absence or uses your kindness like a coupon code. Family is who sets a seat for you without you asking. Who sees you, not as a servant or savior, but as a soul worthy of joy. Before dessert, I stepped outside alone. Cold breeze. Quiet stars. And in the stillness, I whispered something to the sky. You thought I'd fall apart because I missed one flight, but I didn't miss the point. They excluded me thinking they'd get the last word. But what they didn't know is that when you finally choose your worth over their approval, you stop waiting to be invited. You become the home.